Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about the eventual announcement of Rasmus Hojlund and some interesting things that came up. I think I should start to learn to pronounce his name right. There's a video going around. Hojlund is decent, but apparently it's like Hojlund, Hojlund, something like that. I'm gonna embarrass myself trying it, but we will all learn over time. In addition, want to talk about some of the injury updates, talk about some of the outs and potential loans, the slowness there, how it affects Amrabat and how that goes, and what else might occur in this window. So let's get right into it. Okay, so first, let's talk about Rasmus Hojlund. There's a couple of things that I want to mention or bring up, in this respect, which is that, number one, the interesting part about the Rasmus Hojlund recruitment is that, when we look at all the signings that have been made under Erik ten Hag, there's Tyrell Malaysia, who he watched, obviously, when he was at Ajax, played against. Sandro Martinez, who played for him, Anthony, who played for him, Christian Eriksen, who trained with him, Casemiro, not exactly the one, although he spent all that time pursuing Frenkie de Jong, but Casemiro, a huge kind of well-known name. Then we come to this summer, Andre Onana, obviously, Mason Mount, who I would say is definitely more from recruitment, but also someone Erik ten Hag was familiar with in the past and had as well seen in the Dutch league. Rasmus Hojlund is different. Rasmus Hojlund is a player who was not on the club's radar or not on Erik ten Hag's radar last year. It was Gonzalo Ramos and Harry Kane primarily, Mohamed Kudus, other names too, but Rasmus Hojlund was someone identified and brought up through the recruitment department under Dominic Jordan and the rebuilding kind of the whole analytics. There's been a lot of work going into that. And the thing that I'm very curious to see, and where it's a gamble, but it's a test, because this is where United's recruitment can make their mark and see if they're up to scratch or not. This is the type of signing that will determine that. And in that way, it's very exciting. It's a player they thought we're going to pay over the odds for. Gonzalo Ramos going for less money. He's a more proven player, but they're deciding this player is a better fit and has more potential than someone like Gonzalo Ramos, even though we're going to pay more money for him for a less proven player. And that's interesting in its own right. It's a gamble, or it appears a gamble from the outside. And this is really what's going to determine whether they succeed or not. This department, this area, because most of the transfers have been purely Ten Hag driven. Obviously, Ten Hag grew to really like this player. That he's a big part of the process. There's no doubt about that. But that's where the gamble is, right? That is where the gamble is it going to work? But this is what they're supposed to do. This is their job. And now I'm very curious to see it. And I would say that I'm happy to see it moving in this direction because it needs to. They made mistakes. I think Erik ten Hag has done well recruiting players he knows, he's familiar with. It's helped. It's also hurt. Last summer, our entire summer was derailed by the continued and endless pursuit of Frenkie de Jong simply because Erik ten Hag really wanted him. It screwed it up. We lost the first 2 games of the year because of it. Frankly, it's a big part of it. Didn't have the team set up, didn't have the recruitment set up. There's other reasons too, but it was a mistake. The pursuit of it when a player didn't want to join, and the lack of identification of clear alternatives earlier in the window in order to get somebody in a position of need. And the same goes for essentially the goalkeeper position. They should have been addressing it earlier than this summer, but they kind of pressed ahead with just what Erik ten Hag wanted. They end up paying way too much money for Anthony at the point in time. And there's other reasons, as I mentioned, with Glazers and the club sale and things like that have gone on last summer. But one of the things that was clear is you cannot just rely on the manager. You cannot just rely on the manager. You got to protect them from themselves. Like, if we brought in Kudus, that would have been a disaster as our only striker signing, in my opinion. I think it'd be a huge mistake. I think there was other potential huge mistakes possible. We don't want to repeat those, and the recruitment team needs to start being the ones bringing forward the targets, saying this is a player who will work, this is a player who will work, this is the right person, this is the right fit, and then having them come together. And I think this is a first big step in this direction because it's the first big purchase made under Erik ten Hag that isn't a name like Casemiro, that will be a purely club-led decision that he goes along with and sees the data and says, yeah, this is great. It may amount to some degree, but Rasmus Hojlund a lot more. And so now we're going to see if they can work it out, if they can do a good job of it, and if it results in what we need. And it's not to say that Ten Hag's targets aren't good, again, but it's not like Antony's a bad player, but it was not the right way to go about it. The Frankie de Jong situation, obviously, and a few more things. So anyway, that's the way that I see it. I think this is a good chance to prove it, good or bad. This is going to be a very interesting transfer. It's very exciting. He's a very good young player. And the one thing I do want to mention, though, to be really clear on this, because I've been checking this out a lot, because it is annoying, delays, right? You think, well, why can't we get this player in? And people will say, well, it doesn't happen to any other team where you have these delays when a player comes in. But that's not true. You just don't follow other teams the way you follow United. And teams don't receive the same coverage that United do either. You've had players go to Turkey, be filmed at the airport, and then the deal falls through. And this stuff happens. But the delay in things was not, we want to announce you Saturday, so we're going to delay it. That doesn't make any sense, and logically it's not the case. So I've been checking it out. This doesn't come from the club. This isn't PR from the club. I found out independently on my own with resources that I have that he had to travel to London after Tuesday. And he had to fly back on Thursday morning. He arrived around 1:30 in the afternoon on Thursday with his team, other people, and a director from United on Thursday, and then some hours later signed his contract. So there was obviously something that needed to be done and resolved in order for the deal to be completed, even following the completion of the medical on Wednesday. So it must have been Wednesday or something. He traveled down and flew back. I don't know why, but there was a reason for it, even though the medical was done, that he couldn't sign the contract until almost more than a day later, more than 24 hours later. Don't know why. Visa related. Maybe he had to go to the Danish embassy. I don't know. But these are legitimate reasons. And so, not everything is about PR. In fact, a lot less of it is. I mean, there's plenty of PR, and there's some that's good and some that's bad, and that's okay. But this isn't. There's a legitimate reason. I'm working to find out if he's able to join training now, and hopefully we'll get some clarification on that. But the deal is now all set. It wasn't. There was reasons, and where he literally had to leave Manchester. And so these kind of things happen, and it's okay. The deals get done as they get done, and they will end up being done. We saw issues with things like Varane and all of that in years past, that they would have loved to announce the player weeks earlier. The plan on the pitch was not why he didn't train and couldn't be a part of the team for 2 weeks. That was not the reason, but these things happen. So anyway, to just kind of wrap this up on the recruitment side of it, yes, I think this is a really good test for the recruitment team now to prove, can they identify and bring in a really fantastic player on their own back, and hopefully they do. Moving on to Ahmed, obviously the news came out that he would be staying because he's had an injury. And some people might celebrate this and say, well, that's good. He'll get to see what he can do. I don't think that's good, personally. If the implication was that he was going to go on loan, I mentioned this on my video covering the tour 2 days ago. Yesterday? I don't remember. 2 days ago. He looked real bad walking. if he doesn't require surgery, and obviously they're not giving a lot of details on it, then it's probably a couple of days, a couple of 6. I would say it looked bad enough, like 6, 8, 10 weeks or something. Not like Garnacho, who was fine, who was walking fine. Not like Varane, who was walking fine. Not like Anthony Martial, who was walking fine but hasn't featured. Ahmad's a ways from playing. And the issue is that when you think that a player will stay because of injury and then get chances, it doesn't always work out like that. In fact, very often it doesn't work out like that. It happened to Pellistri last year as well. Got an injury in preseason, stuck around, got virtually no minutes, and it's one of the reasons he wants to leave. And or that his camp is kind of pushing to leave, because it was another wasted year for him, essentially, where he got very few minutes, even when a lot of people thought he would get more after some decent appearances. So I don't know what the plan is, but it obviously seemed to be that he was going to go on loan, and he wasn't. And now he can't. And so it's a little concerning. In terms of youth, the only player that was really set to stay for sure and get minutes was Kabi Manu, and he still will once he's healthy again. But Pellistri, Ahmad, Hannibal's likely to go out on loan. That deal is not done yet to Luton, but there is legitimate interest, and it's a legitimate option, and he wanted to go to the Premier League. The youth, they need to sort out, and I think after this weekend, you'll start to see a lot of movement there. But I'm not sure it's a good thing for Ahmed. I think it's still more likely he moves in January. They can't use him to start the year. They can't bring him in as a part of the team. Maybe he'll get some minutes like Pellistri did, but it's hard because you're constantly playing for results, and this is going to be a season United are playing for results. And it's hard to integrate players like that in who you're not sure of for a manager when you're playing for results. It's very tough. And if he was set to go on loan, it means that at that point in time, Erik ten Hag had not assessed him as ready, unlike Kabi Manu. So he's not going to change his mind on that just because he's injured. We'll see what happens, but maybe a move in January would be on the cards. In terms of other outs and loans, obviously, there's a couple of things. Dean Henderson, Arsenal and our Nottingham Forest are looking to bring in Matt Turner, and apparently it's getting close. Now, this doesn't rule out Dean Henderson to Nottingham Forest. It's still an option. They're still in talks, but I heard there was some progress on it, but not yet. And this is an awkward situation because Tom Heaton looks like he's staying. Dean Henderson wouldn't accept being the number 2 anyway, but much less number 3. The relationship between him and the club is pretty fractured. He definitely is looking to go. It's a weird situation, and part of the problem with this is a deal they expected to get done. If it doesn't happen, they need it for FFP purposes with all these purchases, especially moving forward with someone like Amrabat. They expected to move a keeper, and they need to get something done on this. They're still in talks. It's not off just because of the pursuit of Matt Turner, but yeah, it's tight. It's tight, and I don't know if there's other options. There. Fred is not going to Turkey. There's still interest from Fulham and elsewhere, and we are not hearing too much about it. He's been back in training with the team. Fabrizio keeps saying it's close, but I'm not disputing that, except we need to see like some legitimate solid movement on it, because the offers that came in were too low, and United aren't going to just, again, sell for 8 to 10 million and say, great, let's not use a resource that we have for peanuts, and not be able to get a replacement and of better value. Donny van de Beek, on the other hand, looks like a more solid move to Real Sociedad. Looks like it's moving now. A loan, probably with an option, is probably the best we can get there, and that looks like there's some progress on that front. Eric Bailly, the other main name, is not set to be a part of any of the first team stuff, and will somehow depart one way or another. Obviously, you have this situation with West Ham still interested in Maguire and McTominay, but I don't know how they're moving on that. This is a bit of a balancing act now, where United will need some of these deals kind of to happen at the same time to get something done. On the Pellistri front, again, looking to go. United are hoping he will go to FC20. He may be looking to go back to South America, or his agent may be looking to move him to South America permanently. And so, again, some of these things need to kick off in order for more signings to come in. And they should after this weekend, because after this weekend, what's going to happen is you're going to get this kind of finality of like, this is my team. This is who I'm going to start with. These are the players that are going to play major roles. This is what you're going to honestly have to expect. A few hundred minutes. The injuries are done. The final games are done, so there's no more injuries expected after this weekend. These are the players. These are the minutes you might be expecting. This is the role you might be expecting to play. At that point in time, you might see players like McTominay push their way out. You might see more of these loans go out. You might see a final decision on some of these youth players like Hannibal and such to say, are we going to use you at all, or should you go take that move? And is there any other interest there? So I think after this weekend, once those conversations occur, you're going to see it speed up a bit on the outs. Then, of course, it would be moving to Sofyan Amrabat. And as I've said many times, this deal is not as close as it kept being made out a few weeks ago. They had not made offers. They had not made bids. They're not in talks with Fiorentina yet, but they are well informed via the agents. They do know what the deal would take. They have kept tabs on it. They are ready for it. He's obviously wants Manchester United. There's no doubt about any of that. The only question is, will these outs get done and when? And I think still, in my opinion, it's going to happen after the start of the season, closer to the end of the window. I think, again, after these conversations occur, some deals will start to push through with Van de Beek, with potentially Henderson, with potentially Scott, with potentially Fred, with some of these youth loans, and then they can make their move for Sofyan Amrabat. And it could be very quick once that happens. But they also don't want to pay $35 million to Fiorentina when he's not in their plans, and they were ready to sell him for 25 earlier, just because there's interest now. They're also trying to apply a United tax, and that's part of the briefings of trying to hurry it up. Is they are trying to get United to overpay, and rush the deal and get everybody to think like it's on the verge of being done, when it wasn't. And that's just the fact of how it works. And yeah, this is sort of like talking about the club positively, but that is also technically the truth of what's going on. So, anyway, to wrap this all up, some delays with Hojlund, but all fine now. For me, this is where we get to find out how good this recruitment department and the rebuild of the analytics team and all of that actually is how this deal works out, as well as, to a lesser degree, Mason Mount. I have some concerns over what's going to happen with some of these youth players like Ahmed and Pellistri right now. Hannibal to Luton, not done, but is an option. McTominay, Fred, Van de Beek, more progress made on the Van de Beek front at the moment. Henderson, still an option for Forest, and moving, but not there yet. And after this weekend, we expect a lot of that to speed up, and then for a move to Amrabat to be made after the season starts, and then potentially something on the other goalkeeper as well, as we talked about. Okay, so that's what I've got. Thank you for watching this video. Leave your comments below on your thoughts on anything you'd like to see as we're moving into the final stretch of the preseason, any questions you might have, anything you want me to talk about. Yeah, and turn notifications on. Make sure to like this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.